So earlier I mentioned the selection committee, and I just want to make sure that everybody here knows that the selection committee considers nominations from the general public. And in fact, as you heard, the induction of William Cullen Bryant is the result of a nomination from Harrison Hunt, who made such a persuasive case, as you just heard him do now. So if you have someone in mind, please send an email to Rocco or get in touch with the committee some other way, and Rocco will make sure that the committee is aware of your nomination. Now, for our next inductee. When I say that this Dodgers and Red Sox fan from Rockville Center has hit her share of home runs in the book world, including the extraordinary No Ordinary Time, awarded the 1995 Pulitzer Prize for History, and including Team of Rivals, you'll know, of course, that I could be talking about nobody else but Doris Kearns Goodwin. Doris Kearns Goodwin is one of our treasures, and here to induct her is none other than Paul Grondahl, director of the New York State Writers Institute and a member of this year's selection committee.
Thank you very much, Will. It's my great honor and gives me great pleasure to introduce the 2019 inductee into the New York State Writers Hall of Fame, Doris Kearns Goodwin. She is a New Yorker, born and raised in Rockville Center, Nassau County, and a proud graduate of Southside High School. Anyone here from Southside? She celebrates her Long Island roots in her memoir, Wait Till Next Year, in which she writes, quote, "My early years were happily governed by the dual calendars of the Brooklyn Dodgers and the Catholic Church. Her growing up was dominated by a love of baseball, and she watched the games with her father. They had a singular devotion for a particular New York team, which I am certain young Doris never referred to by their lovable nickname, Dem Bums." She told an interviewer recently, quote, "The farthest my dreams went was that the Brooklyn Dodgers would win the World Series. That was the hope of young childhood." Doris Kearns Goodwin is far more, of course, than a Long Islander and a diehard Brooklyn Dodgers fan. She is an American treasure and a presidential historian of the first rank. She has written some of the most enduring presidential biographies of any generation, including indelible portraits of Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, and Lyndon Johnson. She has won the highest literary honors, including the Pulitzer Prize, and has had multiple #1 New York Times bestsellers. She is also widely known for her insightful historical political commentary on numerous cable news programs and documentaries. But what you might not know is how kind and generous she is personally. I've known Doris as a fellow biographer for some years, and she is delightful. When she was working on her sixth book, The Bully Pulpit, Theodore Roosevelt, William Howard Taft, and the Golden Age of Journalism, she spent a memorable day together. We spent a memorable day together in Albany touring Teddy Roosevelt's haunts. I remember she wore running sneakers, and her eyes would light up with a childlike wonder when she discovered new facets about TR and his relationship to the Capitol Press Corps in Albany. She took notes, and I could see her historian's mind at work, connecting the dots between Taft and TR. What I liked most about her is that at the end of the day, she paused for happy hour. We found a downtown watering hole, toasted TR over a glass of wine. I'll not take any credit, but The Bully Pulpit received wide critical acclaim, was awarded the Carnegie Medal, and is being developed into a movie. I also want to mention one other anecdote that makes Doris Kearns Goodwin a Hall of Famer in my book. Last fall, she was in the midst of a book tour for her best-selling book, Leadership in Turbulent Times, a compelling examination of the leadership qualities of four presidents that she has studied extensively: Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, FDR, and LBJ, my guys, as she likes to call them. I'd invited her to the Writers Institute's inaugural Albany Book Festival on September 28th. It would have been very easy for her to take a pass, but not Doris. She was in New Hampshire the night of September 27th, and she had a sold-out evening event scheduled at Northshire Bookstore in Manchester, Vermont, the same day as our event, September 28th. Yet she managed to make our event in Albany. She gave a brilliant main stage presentation on her leadership book, and she stuck around to sign books for her long, adoring line of fans that stretched 100 yards or more. Then she raced away across the border to Vermont. She made that extra effort because, as she told me, quote, I love Albany, I love the Writers Institute, and I love your founder, Bill Kennedy. Well, I'm here to say, we love you. So let's give to our Hall of Famer a warm Long Island, Brooklyn, Manhattan applause to Doris Kearns Goodwin.
Thank you, my friend and mentor, Paul. Tonight, as I enter the New York State Writers Hall of Fame with my fellow New Yorkers, I feel as if I've come full circle and returned home. For it was here in New York, in the small library of my hometown of Rockville Center, that my love affair with books was born. Rheumatic fever had left my mother housebound with a severely damaged heart. Yet despite her illness and an 8th grade education, she read books in every spare moment she could find. Books took her to places that she could never go. It was my great privilege to use her adult card to bring home each week the new list of books that she wanted to read. To be able to turn left into the adult room instead of right into the children's room made me feel taller, older, wiser. In truth, that left turn was a rite of passage. And every night my mother would read aloud to me. The only joy that surpassed listening to her reading books to me was her telling me stories about her own childhood. Many times I entertained the dream wish, the fantasy, that her stories would somehow restore her vital self and her youth. Through her stories, I imagined her young again, jumping rope, taking stairs, 2 or 3 at a time. Tell me a story about you when you were my age, I would press my mother. And so she would spin tales of her girlhood. And I listened to what it was like to grow up in Astoria, New York. I had just turned 15 when she suffered a mass heart attack and died, but the love of books and storytelling that she instilled in me would become the anchors of my life. And it was also here in New York, when I was still in grammar school, that I was taken to Franklin Roosevelt's house in Hyde Park. The house was called a museum, but it seemed to me a place where people still lived and still worked. There on the chaise lounge in Roosevelt's bedroom rested a plaid blanket on which his little dog Fala slept. There on Roosevelt's small desk was his cigarette holder and his pince-nez glasses. It seemed only a matter of time before he would return, put on his glasses, and sit down and read with Fala by his side. So was kindled through these concrete objects the passionate imagining of history that brought people alive, magically resurrected them as my contemporaries. And as for so many others in my generation, it was here in New York, in Brooklyn, that a frenzied love of the Brooklyn Dodgers was forged. I was just 6 when my father taught me that mysterious art of keeping score while listening to baseball games, the signs and symbols of scorekeeping, so that I could record for him the history of that afternoon's Brooklyn Dodger game when he came home at night. As my mother once told stories to me, now I told stories to my father, recounting every play of every inning of the game that had just taken place that afternoon. From hindsight, it is clear that I learned the narrative art from those nightly sessions with my father, because at first I would be so excited I blurted out, "The Dodgers won," or "The Dodgers lost," which took much of the drama of this 2-hour telling away. So I finally learned you had to tell a story from beginning to middle to end, building momentum to keep the rapt attention of my audience of one. Indeed, without me, I thought, he would be in the dark and he wouldn't even know what happened to the Brooklyn Dodgers. And finally, it was here in New York that I found Simon & Schuster, the publishing house that has given me both my literary home for more than 40 years and my incomparable editor, Alice Mayhew. I am so glad that she and my outstanding publicist, Julia Prosser, are here with me tonight. And to be joined here by 6 fellow New Yorkers whose work I profoundly admire means a great deal to me. What unites all of us tonight is not only our roots in and our love for the state of New York, but our reverence for the meaning and the truth of words. We are living in a time of half-truths, invented distractions, and blatant falsehoods repeated again and again and again. Serious damage will be done to our democracy if truth becomes a fugitive, if we grow accustomed to the erosion of meaning in our political dialogues and in our lives. So tonight's gathering is proof positive that words still matter, that words have meaning, that words inspire, words encourage, words enlighten us. It is heartening to be a small part of this celebration of words tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. This looks great.